Bona tarda. So now Catalan is another of the languages that I wish I spoke but don't. Let's try a couple more. Plinhan da? No, nobody speaks Welsh. Okay, and an even harder one. How about bonan postag meson? Esperanto. But you know what? I was with a group of friends, and the word we knew in most language between us was beer, which is just a little reminder, but I'd better get a move on, because that's what's coming next. Just find my arrows on here. Yeah, sorry. No. Okay, so the inspiration for my title, if we can get the volume.
Years I go wandering once again, back to the seasons of my youth, and I recall a box of eggs that someone gave us, and how my mama put the eggs to use. There were eggs of many colors, but every piece was small, and I didn't have a coat, and it was way down in the fall. Mama sewed the eggs together, so in every piece with love she made my coat of many colors that I was so proud of.
So I always think of that song when I look at analytics. It's a coat of many colours, loads of little pieces that we had to stitch together to make those analytics and produce something wonderful. Do you know, there's a habit with country and western. They make films out of songs, and that's a young lady, very talented young lady, who plays Dolly Parton in the film in her coat of many colours. So, get my arrows right. So what are the pieces that make up our analytics coat of many colours? So I've just started relatively recently at London South Bank. I've been working in the sector for many years. The first thing that I had to look at, thinking about the analytics, was our data retention document, our data retention statement. And I think the thing to remember is that for most of you, that probably already exists. I'd be surprised if it doesn't in 90% of the institutions. It probably already references learning data. And as a learning technologist, you may or may not have been consulted in that being written. Multiple parts may affect what you want to do with your analytics. And you've got this contradiction. You need to keep data, that's required of you, but the law also requires you to destroy data. Now, that's quite a fine balancing act. So this point of anonymity may be something that's very useful to think about, because if you can make the data anonymous, it changes how you need to retain it. Sorry, I'm going the wrong way here. That's it. Sorry. Yep. Okay. Most of you, again, will probably already have a reporting server. If not, you're going to need one. You're going to need to synchronize that reporting server with your VLE, with Moodle in this case. You're going to need to think about how you store the data on that reporting server. We've already got a problem that we've got some bits of data that we need to shift off, to shift out of our VLE, but we still need those recorded. We still need to be able to report on them. The other thing to think about with that reporting server, it is not a data warehouse. Okay? That's another piece of the architecture. You also need to think about how you manage your database. Okay, now, we won't be that unusual, but we've got one table in that database which has 300 million records. That is a big table. It's actually quite difficult to do anything with, quite difficult to read, and not surprisingly, the team that run that Moodle server on our behalf keep saying, we want to get rid of it. Why do you need all that data? In 5 years' time, when you're looking at that data, if you've deleted it, you haven't got it anymore. So you need to think about what you're going to do with that. The team running it are right. Everything they tell me comes true in the end. So I've got to think how I'm going to manage that, how I'm going to remove the data while still being able to keep it, in essence. So, we've got reasons to keep the data, reasons to remove it, and reasons to process it, which is what I'm going to have to do. Okay, we do need a data warehouse. So the difference between reporting server and the data warehouse, putting it simplistically, extra dimensions. In this case, see how things have changed over time. Compare this year to last year to 5 years ago, etc. You are also going to need to integrate with other enterprise platforms. On your VLE, it's quite likely you know very little about the students. That information is probably held elsewhere, on a student record system, something like that. So you're going to have to integrate with that. There may be other systems like we have Panopto, we have Turnitin, you will have an authentication system. All of those you need to be able to integrate with. CRM, finance. We've got Salesforce. A lot of you will have that. So you're going to want to integrate those systems into your learning analytics structure. You then need to do some analysis. You need tools that will analyze that data. I think, you've seen some examples there of ways in which that data may be analyzed. Looking for patterns, looking for correlations that you didn't necessarily expect, and sometimes challenging those assumptions that you've made. And then you've got your data reporting piece at the end of that. Okay, so the analysis and the reporting, you might be quite used to seeing them wrapped up in one tool, but they are definitely separate stages. So, you've got that architecture, and you've seen some examples of this, but again, these are the types of ways in which people might eventually, or might pretty soon, consume that data. This one from a Dutch institution. Fortunately, it's got the English down there. Remember, somebody who speaks 2 languages bilingual, somebody who speaks 1 is English. So they very kindly translated that for me. But what I love about that, there's a very direct message there. That student's got a red light. He or she is not expected to pass. Very clear message. Could be a bit demoralizing for some. I think, personally, as a student, this is more the type of thing I would have liked to have seen. This is comparing me to other students in the class. This is made up. It's made up data. But it's comparing me to other students in the class. And particularly, I'm looking at that upper decile. I want to know not how I compare to the class average. I want to know how I compare to those who are doing well in the class. I don't want to know who they are. I'm not in competition with them. I want to see what it is they've worked out that I haven't. And we can see there, my attendance is really good. Maybe that's what I'm getting wrong. I'm certainly very poor here. Formative assessments. So, it's another way of presenting the information. And the academic audience, the teachers, they're going to want different types of information. Maybe something in a dashboard like that. This is my favourite. This is one. I was a teacher for many years. This type of chart, I think, is magic, because what this does is it shows you how well your students are performing against how engaged they are. So you've got some down here, poor performance, poor engagement, maybe some student counselling needed there, sorts of things you're doing in Canterbury. You've got some students here, not very engaged, still performing quite well, irritating, but, maybe they've done the subject before, something like that. The ones I'm really interested in, I won't fall off the stage to show you these, it's this cluster here. So these are hard-working students. They're not actually doing all that well. So those are perhaps the ones where an intervention from me is going to be most powerful. But, it shows me a nice pattern, helps me to very quickly and easily pick out the outliers. Then, of course, the other group of people who are going to consume this information is the leadership, the organisational leadership. So we've got these, these three layers. We've got the students themselves, we've got the tutors who are trying to help the students to achieve. I think that yellow is supposed to represent that it's 5 minutes from beer, but fortunately this is my last slide. Again, you can see, I like these radar maps, but I think this is the type of thing the senior leadership are going to be looking at. Not what is the student doing, but how good is the student experience? How good, how well are we doing on employability? And with that, and I'm doing something on this in a bit more detail tomorrow. I am allowed to plug another presentation, aren't I? That's up to us to see how we wrap up our information into that dashboard that they're looking at. And I guess the final thing I want to do with this, I'm trying to think ahead here. Okay? I don't have answers. I'm just trying in my brain to think, where can we go wrong? Where are we going to make mistakes now that will affect us in the future? There's a time travel theme tonight. So if we're traveling back from 5 years' time, what should we be doing now so that in 5 years we've got the information we want? And not particularly now necessarily, although if people have ideas on any of those feedback items, very welcome to hear them. But, you can contact me afterwards. What is missing from that? Where are organisations on the journey? What are the barriers that we're facing now? What are the future barriers? And actually, are we all working towards that same vision? So those are the sort of things I think, collectively we need to think about, and I would love to hear from you with your thoughts on that. So if there are any questions, or indeed questions for the previous speakers who've been rather cut short, please go ahead. Now, there's the magic 6 seconds.
Any questions? Anybody?
See, 6 seconds that was.
Well, thank you for sharing this vision about the different stakeholders in the Learning Analytics project and some of the stakes some of the things that are stakes. What actual parts did you, so you presenting us a very interesting vision, but what are the actual parts that you actually worked on and implemented?
Yeah, so my first priority, I started in this role in June, my first priority was that data retention statement. Okay? I felt that was really important to look at that, get that right, because we're committed to that, and that was telling us delete, delete, delete. So I had to go through and say, well, no, actually, some of this stuff we want to keep. Oh, surely nobody will ever need that. Well, they might, and if we don't have to delete it, let's keep it. Very closely related to that, and the table's still there, 300 million records in a Moodle table. That's my next priority, is to work out where that information goes. That comes off the server, keeps the server running reliably, and where we put it. The other piece that I'm really glad to say I was really pleased to see in place when I started was that reporting server. What I'm now doing is pulling that data off, and through a little bit of serendipity, I had a call from some people at SPSS, and it looks a really good tool to start doing some of the initial analysis on that data so that I can have a bit of a think about how other people might want to see it in those theoretical charts I've shown. So we're clearly behind some of these others who've got some of those theoretical charts into practice, but that's basically where we are at South Bank at the moment.
There you go. Okay. Maybe Shem before me.
Just going further on the data retention policy, did you encounter any pushback in terms of, let's say you had a contractor SaaS service and you're saying, I need to keep all this data for longer. For example, in our institution, we use Teams and they have a 90-day delete everything policy. And they say that we're going to have an extended policy, then you're going to have to fork out money to keep it.
Yeah, so there are three types of people in that discussion. There are those who, when you say data retention, kind of fall asleep, so you can say anything you like and they haven't heard it. There are those who are hosting it for you, who, if they've got any sense, can see that there might be a slight upsell on your contract there. But really important to talk to them about that. They will have ideas, so we're working with Co-Sector there, been speaking to some of the people at Co-Sector. They're really in the same position as me, but they're looking to work with us on that. I don't think there will be any huge additional cost there because we're already storing more than we need to. And then there are the people sort of in between those two who actually have spotted this coming and were some of the people who pointed it out to me. And again, talking to them a lot because what they're able to tell me is what I can safely do for my analytics vision without damaging the intermediate service. So in terms of a pushback, no, but really important people to listen to there.